Welcome to the Power Within podcast with Raquel, a masterclass in mastery of self. Simply put, this is where you get your life. Hey there, this is Raquel, your favorite therapist, coach, and sister friend of inpoweryou.com. How are you today? And how you choosing? I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Today we're going to talk about, can overthinking reduce a leader's influence? You know, evidence supports that women overthink more than men. And my practice, Caterfly's Life Work in Fayetteville, North Carolina, would be evidence of that only because, and I think this is kudos to women, that they seem to reach out for help more. So I see more women in my practice than I see men. But I do see men, so kudos to the men who recognize when they need help and they're willing to give it to themselves. But the truth is that everyone overthinks occasionally. You might be an overthinker if you say things like, I can't relax, or it's as if my brain won't shut down, or I can't stop thinking about life and how it coulda, woulda, shoulda been if I had done, you fill in the blanks, right? At the Stanford Business Graduate School, they did some research back in 2014 about overthinking, reducing a leader's influence. And in general, people seem to be less drawn to and less open to being influenced by individuals who overthink small decisions and underthink really big ones. Most leaders tend to think that overthinking is not problematic, therefore it's quote unquote normal. However, it's about both a psychological and a spiritual concern. Since all thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are controlled from our central processing system, which is our spirit mind. Now, you have to have been listening to The Power Within for some time to understand that we know and we believe that there is a difference between the brain and the mind. So a lot of times when I refer to the mind, I say the spirit mind because it's spiritual. It's the spiritual center. On a physical plane, though, it's linked to anxiety. So that's the psychological piece that we're talking about. And it's related to depression. So as our mental health declines, overthinking has a tendency to increase. Now, the one thing that can help us here is awareness. If we're aware of what's going on with us, then we can recognize the spiral before you're too deep into it, because it does tend to spiral like all negative things do. From upward, they go downward, and you go into this deep, dark place that you feel that you cannot control. So that's where overthinking, and think of all the words that begin with over. A lot of times when you begin to overthink, you begin to overdo a whole lot of other things, like overanalyze. You feel overwhelmed, right? So just think about that. Now, as a leader responsible for others, it's only ethical to take care of ourselves. And I say that because sometimes we're willing to do more for others than we're willing to do for ourselves. So if I can use that as motivation for you right now, I want to use that. It's ethical. And I think all of us really strive in life sometimes just to get it right. So if you're not going to get it right for yourself, get it right for others, because it's ethical for you to take care of yourself. You can't take care of other people unless you take care of yourself. You can't lead others effectively and influence others if you do not take care of yourself. So this is key. Avoid lying to yourself that the more time you spend thinking, the more you avoid mistakes and can solve problems. You see, this episode wouldn't be right if I just didn't mention Papa John. He said the greatest mistake we make is living in constant fear that we'll actually make one. So let's talk about two forms of overthinking that we have. Ruminating is one form. Ruminating is about the past. The other is worrying. Worrying is always about the future. And I always give this analogy. So as Sophia would say, picture this, right? Picture my right hand as the future. If your thoughts tend to land in the future, you tend to have anxiety. Picture my hand on the left. If your thoughts tend to land in the past, then you tend to experience depression. Now, there are times where depression and anxiety coexist at the same time. What I hope is that before you get to being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, maybe this episode will give you just enough information to know that you have this tendency. So remember that spiral that I talked about just a few minutes ago. Then if you can increase your awareness now, you don't have to necessarily spiral into a true diagnosis of depression and or anxiety. It can be managed. All of this can be managed. So be encouraged. You see, overthinking is not problem solving. Problem solving is solution focused. But when we get into ruminating, a form of overthinking, then that is us dwelling on a problem. Therefore, it's problem focused. Overthinking is not self-reflection. And we know self-reflection is a great tool to use. But overthinking is not self-reflection. Self-reflection is gaining new perspective about a situation. It's also healthy learning about yourself versus overthinking, which is focus on how bad you feel, which increases thoughts about things you have absolutely no control over. You see, self-reflection is really purposeful and intentional. The key here is that overthinking in any amount will not enhance your life. However, problem solving and self-reflection are creative processes. They're creative. And we were created by the Creator, so we want to tap into our creative processes. They bring forth creative solutions, creative ideas, and they bring about learning. They also bring about opportunity for change and growth. And if you're a leader, you are concerned about change and growth. You understand that this is a lifelong process. Now, when we are not operating as leaders and we're overthinking, one of the things that can happen is that those that we are leading can begin to perceive us as indecisive, as in lacking confidence, and they won't want to follow us. So this is another reason why it is truly ethical. It's your responsibility to develop yourself if you're a leader. To know yourself, you have to grow yourself. That's why the Power Within is truly a master class in mastery of self. You don't come here to fix other people. You come here to work on you. You come here to develop you, to be encouraged and to hear content that's going to help you get to the next level. So you gain traction and move forward. That's what you want, to lead yourself and to lead others. A leader who produces multiplies their influence. And that's from Papa John as well. Next week, we will have part 2, where we'll talk about the signs that you are an overthinker and how to support yourself. But before we go, I want to leave you with Psalms 94 and 19. Psalms 94 and 19. When my anxious thoughts multiply within me, your consolations delight my soul. Marinate on that, and I'll see you next week. Remember, the power within you is undeniable. Blessings from your favorite therapist, coach, and sister friend, Raquel. You've been listening to the Power Within podcast with Raquel Reed. For more information on all things Raquel, go to inpoweryou.com. And before you go, don't forget to comment, follow, and share this episode with someone you love.